All right, folks, it is definitely Wednesday, April 17th. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world as always. And we'll be here talking about them on World Edition. So we'll see what we've got going on. I know I've got Rick Rosner with me, and I've also got Nick Palveda, one of the founders of the network. So we'll be seeing what goes on in a number of things. Apparently, an ex prosecutor is worried about Trump jurors' safety. And when I was watching one of the late night shows last night, one of the comedy shows, and all in that space, that they were talking about the fact that I think there were six jurors that had been picked, and maybe they'll get some more later on. But a jury that will decide Trump's fate begins to take shape as the first criminal trial powers ahead. So definitely, it looks like some folks are wondering about the safety of those folks that might be on the jury and all along those lines. And after meeting Herzog, UK's Cameron says it's clear Israel will respond to Iran attack. Nothing would remain. Iran's president vows to completely destroy Israel if it launches even the tiniest invasion. So that is something that we're seeing as those folks are going back and forth in terms of their conversation and all along those lines. And in Columbia University's president will testify about anti Semitism on that particular campus. And Biden is to call for tripling tariffs on Chinese steel products. So that is something else that is going on in the world as well. And definitely a lot of folks will be paying attention to all of this stuff taking place, including, like I said, that trial. And we'll see what goes on in the testimony of the Colombia president and all in those ways. So lawmakers and Jewish groups brace for Colombia's Capitol Hill anti-Semitism showdown. So that is something that we'll be seeing as well. And of course, there's the whole thing of Mayorkas impeachment. So the Senate is set for a showdown over the Mayorkas impeachment article. So Senate is set to be sworn in. Senators are set to be sworn in as jurors in the Mayorkas impeachment trial. So definitely that's what's going on in the Senate as they are to begin that DHS secretary impeachment trial, and we'll see where that goes as well. And the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, had late stage rectal cancer and was depressed before his prison suicide, according to autopsies in that way. And if you're wondering if they were in Butte, Montana, and you saw something that was very large running through your town, it was actually something very large running through your town. Because apparently, a circus elephant got loose in Butte, Montana, and definitely just went for a stroll through Butte, but escaped. Circus elephant thunders down Montana Street after car backfires and scares her hours before the show. So it looks like that animal escaped the circus and was roaming the Montana streets. And that was only 13 minutes ago. So maybe he's still roaming the streets, but hopefully they will catch that elephant and put it back into the circus, even though I do know that some people are not the biggest fans of the way that animals are treated in circuses and all along those lines. But hey, maybe Rick has run across one of those animals in his neck of the woods as well. But we'll find out in a little bit what he's got to say about the runaway elephant. Getting back to more serious news, the USC Shao Foundation, that would be the University of Southern California, is distancing itself from a canceled pro-Palestinian valedictorian. So USC has banned the pro-Palestinian student valedictorian from speaking at the commencement, citing safety concerns. And the USC valedictorian is defending his support for the abolition of Israel. So that's something going on as well. And I think there was even some folks that were planning some mass protests in various cities as well around some of the things going on in Israel and the whole conflict between Israel and Hamas. So that is something that folks will be paying attention to as well. And we lost another person that was very influential in the whole Democratic Party and all along those lines, that being Bob Graham, who was an ex-U.S. senator and a Florida governor, and apparently he passed away at the age of 87. So there was definitely some folks that will be talking about this particular folksy kind of politician, and sometimes those folksy politicians are given a lot of credence in the way that they handle things and all in that space. But yes, that particular individual did recently pass away, and I know that folks will be giving their condolences to that family as well. So it'll be interesting to see what our folks have to say. Maybe they had some dealings, because I want to say that Nick lived in Florida for a while, and it might have even been under Bob Graham's tenure. I don't remember whether that was the case or not, but when he gets here, we'll ask him if that was the case and what was going on in that way. And in Karen Reed's high profile Massachusetts murder trial, they're underway with jury selection as well. So a lot of jury selections going on around the country, and I imagine around the world as well. So definitely they are resuming with a second day of jury selection. So they've got jury selection there in Boston, kind of like what Trump's going through as well. So definitely this will be interesting to see, because a Boston police officer's body was found 2 years ago in a snowy yard. Now his girlfriend is going on trial for that particular murder. And speaking of, it looks like the LA mayor is pleading for the wealthy to help buy houses for the homeless. So Mayor Bass says LA cannot afford to accept the homeless crisis during her State of the City address. And definitely she is calling on the city's most fortunate to help create more affordable housing. We'll see if that actually goes anywhere or not, since it'll be interesting to see whether folks actually go for that, or if they just give her a pass on that idea. But we'll see what folks have to say about that as well. And U.S. House Speaker Pelosi has arrived in Taiwan, defying Beijing. So definitely it looks like also China is sending fighter jets to shadow the U.S. Navy plane over the Taiwan Straits. And definitely that'll be something interesting to see what happens in that way as well. And Senator Bob Menendez may blame his wife in his federal corruption trial. Court filings are showing. So definitely Senator Menendez has been charged in a bribery scheme, and he may blame his wife in this particular case, and all we know along those lines. And the judge resigns after a News Nation interview about Kansas moms. And they're definitely saying bodies have been found in Oklahoma and confirmed to be missing women in the God's Misfits murder case. And definitely it'll be interesting to see how that also plays out in the news as well. And with his 2024 efforts over, DeSantis is tweaking the whole book ban thing. So DeSantis signed a bill limiting book objections in school libraries. So DeSantis signed a Florida bill making it harder to weaponize book bans in public schools. So it looks like he might be limiting some of the things, and maybe this is a effort of his to make himself a stronger candidate for 2028. But we'll see if folks agree with me on that or not. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders gets her Trump on. So the Arkansas lawmaker is questioning the governor's office about the $19,000 election. So the audit complete in Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and apparently there was a $19,000 podium purchase, and it's one that works at a cultural center. Anybody that's buying a $19,000 podium, that is probably way too much to be spending on a podium, and all along those lines. And it looks like the Supreme Court justices may do Trump and January 6 rioters a favor. So they may be getting a break from the Supreme Court as well. So it looks like the Supreme Court judges are divided over charges against some January 6 protesters. So that is definitely going to be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And in Ohio, a man there was charged with the murder of a African-American Uber driver he mistakenly believed was a scammer. So apparently he fatally shot the 61-year-old Uber driver after scammers targeted both of them, and all along those lines. So he was charged now with murder of that Uber driver, and there's the belief that he thought that that person was a scammer, and all in that way. And in Alabama, we've got a redrawn District 2. Democrat Shomeri figures and GOP's Caroline Dobson are going to be heading toward a runoff for a new House district, because we do know sometimes these new House districts created in all parts of the world. As a matter of fact, I think there's some new districts even right here in North Carolina as well. So like I said, I'm going to bring in my fine folks and see what they've got to say. I know I've got Rick Rosner with me, and I've also got Nick Palveda, and we'll see what other folks have to say about a number of the news stories that are going on. I guess the first question I was going to ask you, just out of curiosity, and then we'll get to the more serious news and everything, is have you ever encountered a runaway elephant? Because apparently
No, but I've kissed a horse, but I have not encountered an elephant.
not encountered a runaway elephant because apparently those folks in Butte, Montana, and that's a open plain territory, so that elephant's got probably plenty of room to run and all along those lines. So hopefully they can catch that elephant that got loose. And like I said before, I know there's a lot of conflict around how people handle the wildlife in circuses, and I know some circuses.
I just saw a picture of the guy who shot the Uber driver, and I don't know if we're allowed to say the term cracker on this show, but the guy, I mean, he looks like every old white guy who harbors like some bad beliefs. Let's say.
Yeah, and that's what he looked like to me as well. It looked like he could definitely fall in that category and all along those lines. And I know we've got Lee Newton Rhodes with us as well. Hopefully he'll come on. I know we've also got Jatovi and all in that space. Maybe Jatovi ran across one of those elephants as well, since they've got those runaway elephant in Butte, Montana and everything. So I don't know if you've ever encountered a runaway elephant, Jatovi.
No, not at all. I hadn't come across a runaway elephant.
No runaway elephants for you and everything. Well, the question I've got to ask everybody now that we've had the elephant jokes and the elephant sense of humor and everything, and hopefully they'll catch that elephant and everything, is we've got a trial going on. Actually, we've got several trials going on, which I didn't realize we had as many trials going on all over the place. Everything from Mayorkas to Menendez to that lady that I mentioned as well. And of course, the big trial that everybody is thinking about is this notion of what's going on with Trump. I think the last time count I heard was there were 6 jurors, and now folks are worried about the safety of the jurors and all along those lines. So what is our thoughts about this trial? And is it going to be, are we going to have a jury by the end of April? Or are we thinking the jury won't even be able to be selected till May or June at the rate that they are?
They have 7 jurors selected. They need, I think, 18, 12 plus 6 alternates. So they're already 40% of the way after 2 days. They have today off. I guess they take Wednesdays off for, I don't know, court business or something. So yeah, they'll get the jurors picked.
What about the safety of the jurors? Because apparently that's a concern that some people were raising. And I've also heard some people, I think Adam brought up that he wished it was in Staten Island, because apparently Staten Island is a more stronger Republican borough than, say, where it is currently held at, and all along those lines. So are we worried about the safety of the jurors? And do you think they're doing enough to protect the jurors?
I assume that they're going to take care, and they'll probably sequester them, which the trial won't take that long. It's not an overly complicated case, and they'll get to stay, in a really nice hotel. So, in New York City, a lot of people live in 350 square feet. They would, it could be nice for them. Not being threatened isn't nice, but staying in a New York hotel could be nice.
Speaking of staying in a New York hotel, I'm going to switch just slightly, but I will get back to the Trump trial and everything. But you also heard me say earlier in the news report that apparently the leader of Los Angeles, and I know that you live in that area, is talking about the rich covering for the problems of the homeless, and she has asked the folks that are in the upper 1% and all of that to help buy housing for the homeless. So that's what Mayor Bassett saying she wants done. Is there any possibility of this happening, and will it happen in other parts of the world as well? Because this sounds like a very old move.
No. I mean, LA is, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, and we're as NIMBY as anybody. NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. Right. And I'm on a neighborhood council, and NIMBY and homeless issues, I'm on a committee. I didn't get reelected to the council itself, but I mean, yeah, this is an ongoing issue in LA, and we can't even, it's really tough to even turn your garage into a grandma unit, because people don't want to, lower their property values by increasing the density of housing. And it's a problem throughout the state. Until just like last year, people were leaving California because California is the home of so many rich, successful people that the average house in California costs more than $800,000. So,
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts, Nick?
This is a big problem, Mark. And the thing is, this is a problem that the federal government should address rather than throwing all their money away to chip companies. They're giving like $6 billion to Samsung, giving them $6 billion so they can build chips. So here in the United States, so that Game Boy can go faster, so Jatovy can get his faster internet. In the meantime, they ignore the homeless population completely, as they're giving corporate welfare out everywhere. Here's what they should do. You remember we had a war on drugs, it failed. Remember we have all these stupid government programs like climate change, it fails. What they should do, and they can do, is build homes. They could build it like crazy, and we can eliminate our homeless population. It's, like you said, how much does it cost to build 150 square foot townhouse or set of condos? It's not that much, but we have no desire to help the homeless because we're too busy padding the corporate welfare out like crazy and then handing stupid money out to things like climate change. In the meantime, you get what you deserve here in this country, a bunch of homeless people in your backyard. Yes, Rick.
So I think housing is going to become much cheaper as tech and 3D printing. Like I follow a company that does robotic construction, and that's going to, within 10 years, going to make the cost of housing, constructing, basic houses or even nice houses, cheaper. The trouble is in the South, and there's tons of room in the Southwest. The trouble is we don't have any water. We only have the Colorado River. If you look at a water map of the U.S., the entire Southwest depends on the Colorado River, and that's one skinny little river. So if you can put up a gazillion houses, but I don't know how you get those people water.
Well, I mean, there's different ways because of technology you can get water. In other words, there's technology right now that you can take air and turn it into water. We do it here in the South using dehumidifiers. You can have desalinization.
Well, you guys actually have humidity in the South, but like the Southwest, we're at like 10% humidity. So
yeah, your humidity is an issue, but desalinization plants can also work. But it doesn't matter because you don't have a government. You have a totally liberal lunatic government who will not address the real problem. They're running
hold on a second. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is actually.
But they won't address housing for regular folks.
No, hold on a second, Nick. I got to ask you a couple of questions.
I got
to ask you a couple of things. I think Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is actually
chip welfare. Hold on a second. Chip companies. Are you serious? 60 billion. How many houses can you build for 60 billion? Do a calculation on that, Rick. That's a lot of houses.
LA is, the state and the city are trying to address it, but for some reason, LA can't build housing or convert old crappy hotels to housing economically. We've put
if they had 60 billion, which is going to the chip manufacturing, I guarantee you they can build a lot of houses. Go do a calculation how much you can build for $60 billion rather than give it to Japanese companies. Here, give it to them, not even loan it to them. Give it to them so they can make faster chips so people can run their Game Boys faster.
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. Hold on a second, because I know that Toby's going to want to jump in.
Look at Toby, he's laughing because he knows it's true.
Hold on a second, because there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that you just brought up.
Come on, man.
There's a couple of things you just brought up that I've got to.
People in LA. He's
doing hold on. So the solution is to turn America into the Matrix, which will happen in the next 20, 30 years. There will be tens of millions of people who spend every waking hour living in virtual reality. And somebody who in their 150 to 200 square foot home built by the government. But when a bunch of the population is living in 150 square foot, studios, that means you can cram more people in together, they're living in one of those Japanese pod hotels.
It's like Manhattan. Come on. It's like Manhattan. Everybody lives on top of each other, but there's still homeless people there. However, a lot of them move to the Roosevelt Hotel or the Wellington or whatever. Here they don't do that in LA, but that's because your federal government the purported liberals who don't give a rat's rear about poor people are spending their money on climate change, not building houses for the poor. I don't know why liberals hate poor people. It always got me, that they don't give a rat's rear about them. Then they spend more on these PPP loans. That was atrocious also as well. Climate change. Oh, everybody also has to have internet. That's important. You're homeless? That's too bad. Oh, you're starving.
You can't turn America into the Matrix without everybody having a decent internet connection.
Come on.
But so you're talking about the feds, but the LA city and the state of California, it is probably the number one issue in the state. And they keep trying stuff. And I mean, you talked about climate change. Our climate is one reason we have the most homeless people in America, because the semi-smart homeless person would rather be on the streets in LA where it drops to, to 52 at night instead of the streets of.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. If I was homeless, I'd move to Florida because you can hang out there and it never gets super cold. But still, this should be a right. This should be a plan by the federal government. So liberals need to get off their climate change butts. Their internet, everybody has to have one butts. Everybody has to have EV stations butts, and turn around and actually use government money properly, which is to help the poor. Why they
hold on a second. Hold on a second, Nick. Hold on a second. There's a couple of things I got to bring up really quickly. One is that Karen Bass. Hold on a second. Karen Bass has actually got this program called the Inside Safe Programs, which moved over 21,000 homeless people into temporary shelters, and that's according to the
make it permanent
and everything. And she's acknowledging, she's asking the wealthy to help speed up the housing purchases for the homeless. So she's saying right now we're working to move past nightly rentals. We're asking the most fortunate Angelenos to participate in this effort with personal, private sector, and philanthropic funds to help us acquire more properties, lower the cost of capital, and speed up housing. And she also, apparently the GOP is wondering about the accountability of the, because apparently they can't account for $24 billion spent on the homeless crisis in terms of what the GOP is saying. Now, whether that's true or not, that's another matter. And then, y'all got a candidate over there in LA, Steve Garvey, that used to play baseball. And apparently he's stunned by the depth of the California homeless crisis, and he will seek an audit.
And by the way, the mistake you made in your whole diatribe, Mark, is you're going to ask rich people for money. Let me tell you.
Wait, there's one part
of my life with rich people. You don't ask them for money because they're good at saying one word, no. So
there's one thing that Mark said: lower the
all their lives to be greedy. They've been trained all their lives to be greedy. You're going to ask the greediest person on the planet Earth to give money. Good luck with that one. So forget it. You got to tax.
Mark said one thing that Karen Bass said, which is lower the cost of capital.
Right.
If you can tell rich people, like a mortgage now is 7-8%. If you can tell rich people that they can earn 6% on their money by loaning it to projects.
Oh yeah, they already do that through opportunity zones. But the real problem is you allow the Republicans to go rampant on the taxes. For example, I worked in the estate tax area for years. When if you had an estate of more than 600,000, you start getting taxed at 55%. And then lo and behold, let's not tax the rich people. And they moved it up to over $20 million. Now it's like 23, 24, and it keeps increasing, which means all of a sudden, people who die and inherit money, yours truly being one of them, we don't have to pay taxes. And that's good for the society. It's good for me. I don't know if it's good for society. I think society really gets on the rear end, because the thing is, they have the money to pay the taxes. And frankly, it wouldn't hurt for them to pay something when their parents die and they leave them multi-millions and millions of dollars. But no, we can't tax the rich. Since we can't tax the rich and the rich aren't going to give, this is a very poor program. The only way you can get rich people is you got to tax the bejeevers. And the best way to tax them is when they're dead. They can't fight. I'm serious. I worked in that area for 17 years. When you're dead, okay, that rich, greedy person can't fight anymore. And the kids don't give a rat's rear because they're just little greedy suckers like me who want to get whatever we can get out of the estate. So why did you eliminate the estate tax when that could solve the homeless problem in the United States? Seriously. But we don't want to tax the rich. Good. So now you get your homeless. It's your choice, not mine. I'll be in Spain where there's no homeless for very long.
Well, I'm sure there's no. Well, we just said
I'll be
sending you all
the
they got
pictures of
squatters in
homeless people
Spain. That means that they're homeless in
aren't
Spain
any.
as well.
Sorry.
We just said that there's squatters there, so they have a homeless crisis.
That's an interesting way to get out of the homeless crisis. Because here's the other thing about rich people you guys don't know. They own multiple homes. Okay. Almost all my clients had multiple homes. One time I had 4 of them, so it wasn't like it's unusual, but my wife doesn't want to have multiple homes again. Pain to keep up. But here's what they do in Spain. You can't get away with that stuff because squatters can come into your home and take it over. Now they, quote, own it. So all those rich people in Naples, Florida that boarded their homes, and I'm serious, these are like, $15, $20 million homes. They're empty during the summertime because they go back up north. Squatters would come in and take them over. And that eliminates the homeless problem. So another way to do it is say, hey, squatters' rights, baby.
Nick, what about the
squatters' rights?
But Nick, what about the overspent money that is
rich people
also out there as well?
Rights.
Because some of these rich folks are spending money on ridiculous things. Because, like I said, I've worked at a number of event centers and done a number of events in various places, and I can tell you that I have yet to be in a $19,000 lecturing and everything. But apparently, that's what they needed in Arkansas, because when they did their whole audit of what was going on with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's got a $19,000 podium purchase, and I'm trying to figure out, that podium better have all kinds of amenities and all kinds of things that go with it, because that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's kind of expensive. That's kind of like throwing the money away. But in Arkansas, remember, Arkansas is a pretty dumb state just to begin with. There's some really stupid states. We were going over them yesterday at National Pension Partners, which states we should work in, which we shouldn't. One we're like not going to work in is New York, which we worked in for years, mainly because the regulatory environment. It's the same reason Trump, what he really should do is sell everything and go to Florida, go to a state that isn't so liberal, crazy, against everything, total controlled state of New York. The other one is Arkansas. It's too bloody poor. Same with Louisiana.
You said he needs to go to Florida, but President DeSantis backtracking on some of his things, because I just told you that DeSantis signed a bill limiting school book challenges, because there was that whole thing about school books. Yeah, he is tweaking that, so maybe he is trying to push himself a little bit more to the middle.
Okay, I read those arguments. Okay, so here's the deal. So they have some sex books stuck in a library somewhere. And some conservative is crazy about, kids are going to run up and read. No, they're not going to go up and read the sex book. First of all, they don't want to read. Okay. So last thing in the world they're going to do is go to the school library. And then they're going to run around and look for a sex book there. Why would they want to do that when they can just pull their cell phone out and see as much porn as you like? I mean, so it's ridiculous. This whole idea is that we're going to protect our kids by not letting them read books is insane. They have all the sex they need right here in this little tool. And no matter what you do, you can't stop them. So the thing is, you can give that whole argument up. So the book companies are really against it because they want to print their books and sell it. I can't blame them. So take all these book bans and burn them. It's a waste of time. They have all the sex they need and then some right at their fingertips on their cell phones. Am I missing something, Jacoby? Come on.
It's a lot. I'm just letting you ride because it's hilarious.
You're not butting in and just destroying everything I'm saying, which is really weird.
It's funny.
You must have had a good day at the ballpark yesterday or something.
I mean, so just to point out, like the chips thing, we need the chips because, as you pointed out, we needed technology to help out with not only the climate change and all this other stuff. So to figure those things out, we definitely need chips. So the CHIPS Act is a positive thing. Then on top of that, you point out that, we can build all these homes, but we can't do both. No, we can do both. There's money for both. And then the funny part is, then you talk about, the rich this. Well, the rich are the ones who are wanting to cut funding for schools so kids can't even eat in schools. So now you can't even have education to help out those without, because you're cutting extra funding already. So all these policies that you're talking about them in a vacuum, as if it's either one or the other, which that's not the way the government works, nor how things have ever worked. So yes, we can do both. We can actually work on homeless things, or work on helping those who are homeless. And to do that, we have to have the motivation to do so, which a lot of the Democrat policies do want to do that. But a lot of the Republican policies and the demonization and saying, well, you're taking my taxes to do this. You're helping out. Well, it's true. The PPP loans were forgiven, but student loans won't be because, hey, student loans affect more of the middle to lower income individuals than they do of the rich individuals who can pay off their student loans and be done with it. So there's a lot of, it's interesting. It's funny listening to the complaints that are always there, but have no context. They're just based out of fear and demonizing the other. And like, even if you talk about the homeless situation began with, really kicked off when individuals in New York were kicked out of mental institutions and thrown into the streets because they didn't want to pay for the medical care. So it's easier to just put them on the streets than actually taking care of those individuals who had mental health issues. So a lot of this comes down to what are our priorities as a country? What are our priorities as individuals? We always talk about how we should help each other, but when it comes to the dollars and cents, it's like, well, no, let's not do that. That costs too much. I mean, NASA, for example, ran into that. Right now, NASA, when they sent the probe to Mars, they wanted to bring the samples back from Mars quickly. However, what came into the issue? Well, it was going to cost a particular amount of money to do that. So now they're having to push back the date of when they can actually bring it back. So now it's going into 2040 before they can bring those samples back, because the actual technology that they had to send was going to cost too much to bring it back quicker. But because we have other missions, they only had a particular amount of money to do that. And rather than thinking about how we can improve society and improve particular things, it's always down to that bottom dollar, dollars and cents. We got to cut, because this individual at the high wants that extra money.
So I would argue, I don't have the statistics, but that conservative billionaires are more willing to kick in millions of bucks to get what they want politically than liberal billionaires are. I just looked up how much Fox News is worth. It's only worth $13 billion. If you got like 6 liberal billionaires to each, kick in a couple $100 million, you could buy Fox News and have it, broadcast less BS every day.
But see, Jatovy has made some statements that he's not aware, but I'm going to have to direct his attention. You put some four-letter words in your statement that we're going to have to get rid of. Number one, you asked rich people to help people. Help is a four-letter word. I counted it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jatovy, that is off the air. The other thing is you ask rich people to take care of people. Those are 2 four-letter words. I'm going to have to ban those words from us because rich people don't take care of other people. So you have to get rid of your 4-letter words when you're talking with rich people, because they're not going to help nor take care.
But Nick, speaking of four-letter words, and there is this word called help, and some people want to help folks. You mentioned that earlier, and all along,
it's a 4-letter word.
It's one of those 4-letter words and everything. You mentioned that, but there are some folks that want to help people in the Middle East, and they apparently want to help them by doing protests and even blocking streets and all along those lines. And they're saying that we could be heading toward a summer of disevil, because there was a case of, I think, in Golden Gate over there in San Francisco, them blocking the bridge. I think they did something similar in New York, and now they're saying that we can expect a bunch of these protests all over the country, that the people are upset with what's going on in Israel and everything in that space. So is this something that we need to be concerned about? Are the police going to
because it's only going to happen in New York, and it's going to happen in LA. It's not going to happen in the South, because
it's already happening in the South. There was protests here as well.
Rednecks would clear the streets, basically. So all your protesting isn't going to be done in the South, because they'll just run them over. So it'll be done in New York and LA. That's it. Because the liberals tolerate that, but the conservatives don't, and they won't.
I think
we're going to get a lot of this. So
it's true.
I think there were going to be protests here in North Carolina, and in Durham. Durham is a liberal city, and I think there will be protests in other places as well.
The streets will be clear here in North Carolina because you get a bunch of rednecks from out in the country, and they're going to bulldoze these people over.
Well, there's
So I
two
think they
things
need to
going
take their
on. There's
protest.
two things going on with this. There's going to be a lot of shit stirring leading up to the election. On the one hand, people are honestly upset about Israel's behavior in Gaza. On the other hand, there are cynical manipulators who encourage people to get out there and protest and so they can talk about like the people who defend the January 6th rioters say, well, what about the Black Lives Matter rioters? And so those people want more rioting and unrest because it helps Trump's chances. So it's going to be a summer of unrest.
No, not for you guys. For me, it ain't gonna be no summer of unrest. I'll be in Barcelona, baby. I'm gonna be eating tapas, watching you guys go crazy over here. Oh, by the way, our polls are down all time, Mark. In other words, people really don't like the Trump-Biden. Usually when I put a Trump-Biden poll, by now I'd have thousands of people voting, thousands of people. Now I have like 5 or 6. Well, now, that's a very interesting phenomenon.
Hold on a second. There's another major issue that people might be. Hey,
well,
Nick,
I'm saying that
issue
a big issue
that people might be more concerned about. Because people like good gossip, and they like good gossip all the time. And there's a billionaire that apparently is all over the news because apparently he is not just a rich man anymore, but he's a rich man with a girlfriend, or a fiance. So a lot of people are all over Lauren Sanchez trying to figure out who Lauren Sanchez is because
Lauren Sanchez is
the girlfriend or the fiance of Jeff Bezos. So maybe she's going to get some of that money and then dump Jeff Bezos. But right now she is on the arm of Jeff Bezos whenever he goes anywhere, and she is now engaged to one of the richest men in the world and everything. So,
with the prenup installed, of course. Go on.
Lauren Sanchez is America's hottest weather girl. Los Angeles has the hottest people who stand in front of a weather map. She started out, that was her job. It's ballistically hot. And now she's used her hotness to, become eventually one of, if the prenup doesn't hold or if he's generous, one of the world's richest women.
Well, even if there's a prenup, she's going to do really well. I mean, the thing is, she obviously is going to do really well. But what got me about Bezos is that his wife he divorced looks exactly like Sanchez. I mean, it was really weird. It's like I traded cars and I got the same car. I was going weird. And what also got me is Bezos. To give you an idea how much they don't like paying taxes, Mark, Washington imposed a capital gains tax, and he needs to sell his Amazon stock. He bolted to Florida where there was no capital gains tax. I'm serious. He spent like $300 million to buy new homes in Florida, and he's leaving Washington State. So when you say, oh yeah, these rich people are going to be generous, wait a minute, let's go look at their 4-letter words. They're going to help other people. That's a 4-letter word for rich people. Don't bother with that one. Oh, they're going to take care of people. The only way you get them is
some rich people want to be. They don't want the government deciding how they're going to be generous. Like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett have said they're giving away 99% of their billions, but they want to decide. They don't want to give it to the government. If somebody told you
that is such PR, that is such BS. Okay, here's what they're doing. Let's get the reality. I mean, I spent literally 17 years of my 40 years career working just with rich people, not the pension people that make $500,000 to $1.5 million a year. I'm talking about people that are worth like 500 million to multi-billions. Okay. So what is it? This generous thing is all PR. They're giving it to a quote private foundation, which them and their kids control, and they give it to them once they die. The only reason they make current gifts is you get current income tax deductions for the current gifts. So it solves their income tax problem. It solves their estate tax problem. The kids still get control of all the funds. What's wrong with the private foundation? And then they get the perception is, I'm giving all my money to charity. Leave me alone. Baloney. Not only that, they set up all their kids with multi, not decamillion, centimillion-dollar trust. It's already been done. So, and I know the attorney, Alan, I forgot his last name, that was working on the Gates estate when I lived in Seattle. I mean, it is such a PR joke that it is not funny. And every one of them do it. And then goes to Warren, well, you'll do the same thing. Sure, I will, because I won't pay any estate taxes. So basically, all this we're giving all our money to charity. No, it isn't. They're screwing the federal government and screwing everybody so that their family can continue to benefit. Thank you very much for the private foundation. And yes, yours truly has set them up. And I bet most people listening don't even know what a private foundation is.
No, a lot of people don't know that and everything, but some people even set up private.
That's because you don't teach basic financial planning.
A lot of people don't know how to set up private foundations either, and definitely those.
Well, what about trust? How many trusts have you guys set up? How many trusts have you benefited from? Do they even know what trusts are? I've set up thousands of them, literally. They're basically an estate tax dodge for years and a way to control the money from the grave. They know how to control the money when they're alive. They want to control the money when they're dead. So they set up trusts. But do we teach trust? No, we're busy learning art and video games in high school. So you don't know anything about how
I do know a little bit about trust. I do know a little bit about trust because Mom did work for the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation before she worked for the Golden State Foundation, which is definitely very much trust. Golden State was the tobacco settlement money, and Z. Smith Reynolds is, of course, the Reynolds family, and all along those lines. So I've definitely had some experience, even if it was secondary, because it was actually Mom that was doing the work in that space. But one thing I was going to ask you is, sometimes the rich also get into these very stupid arguments, and I know that maybe even Jacoby want to jump in this one as well. But apparently, Katie Couric is in the news because she had a maternity leave, and she says that Brian Campbell gave her a lot of crap for taking maternity leave while she was working on Today, and she felt that was incredibly sexist and all along those lines. Because, like I said, she was trying to have a child, so she took a maternity leave. Makes sense to me and everything. Of course, it would take a maternity leave if you're having to have a child, but I guess Ryan Gumbel thought that was something that she didn't need to do while working on that major network and everything.
I don't know anything about maternity leave. I never applied for it, Mark, so it's not.
Yeah,
not
and your wife never
hey,
applied.
Christina has joined us. Maybe she can give us some insights to this. Notice we're like the reverse of The View.
Hi guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and where are you beaming from, Christina?
I'm in Las Vegas right now.
Yeah, it's very early where she's at. It's like about what is it, like 7 something?
7:42. Yeah.
Yeah, 7:42. It's very early where she's at.
Wow.
So you guys.
And she has the American flag behind her. Perfect.
We've been talking about the homeless. We've been talking about a number of things, but we even talked about
there is no homeless in Las Vegas, is there, Christina? No homeless in Las Vegas.
Oh, none.
No.
Absolutely
I hate to tell you that I visited there. There is homeless there actually.
Yeah, we do have homeless people here. I was joking.
Right. Okay. And the thing is, you would rather have government money spent on climate change and the CHIPS Act and building charging stations than to take care of the homeless. Correct? Would that be a correct statement, Christina?
Well, I don't agree with that either. I mean,
okay, good. All right, then we'll bring it on.
A lot of the homeless people, I mean, unfortunately, they have mental illness. And if you see, like, it dates, back to the 80s where all the mental institutions were deinstitutionalized around, like, the Philadelphia area. Like, I know you guys know, I'm from New Jersey, but on the East Coast, there's a lot there because a lot of those people with mental illness, they had nowhere to go. So they ended up in Atlantic City, around the boardwalk and things like that. But that's kind of where it started.
Hey, speaking of speaking of that, and speaking of the things that go on, because the homeless are also sometimes involved in the drug trade. Not all of them, but some of them are involved in drugs and alcohol. And apparently there is a drug lord that is a little bit upset at us, Nick, and everything, because Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is claiming that he can't get calls or visits while he's in the U.S. prison. So he's apparently been denied a request to get this, and he is a cartel kingpin. But apparently he's writing letters to the prison, to the judge, to let his wife, Emma Coronel, visit, speaking of wives, and all along those lines. But he's apparently been denied requests to visit with his daughter and wife, and definitely he wants these visitation rights. So what do we think about this fact that this man that is very much known to be a leader of the drug kingpins and all in that space, but he's like, wait a minute, I'm in U.S. prison and y'all won't let me get my visits and my phone calls.
Compared to, if he were in a Mexican prison, he could get whatever he wanted.
Yes.
Now, the Mexican prison's like Goodfellas, where if you have the pull, you can live however you want. He could move his whole family in there and live nicely with money in Mexico. The U.S. is harsh with its prisons. If you look at the rest of the world, there are a lot of countries where they decided we'll treat the prisoners humanely and see if it gives us better results, and often it does. In these
and apparently in your fair state, there is a prison that had various sex abuse claims and all along those lines. So they're actually
shutting down a women's
shutting down that
prison
prison,
was known as like Rape City. Yeah, it's especially in California, they have a very powerful prison guard lobbyist group, and private prisons and the prison guard industry have a lot of pull, and it leads to exploitation of prisoners, where prisoners have to pay like $3 a minute to make phone calls to their family, or even worse, or they can't get books anymore because somebody decided they shouldn't have a library, but they can download books to their Kindle for like $10 a book, and somebody's making all this money off of exploiting prisoners. There's a
but Rick, along those same lines, I'm going to come back to Trump, because I know Sasha loves when we come back to Trump, as does Isaiah and Christina and everything. But Kari Lake, who we know is somewhat of a Trump supporter, is suggesting that supporters, and I quote, strap on a Glock to be ready for 2024. So she's telling the supporters to get ready and to strap on the Glock. So she's urged supporters to arm themselves ahead of the election. So what are our thoughts around this? Because I've heard that she was even a potential vice president candidate, and she wants folks to go out there and get their Glocks and get ready to for the armed rebellion and all in that space.
Who wants to do this? Who said this stupid thing?
Kari Lake,
Kari Lake.
One of the
Who's Kari
Nevada
Lake?
lady who never, or Arizona, said she's one of those I won the election and everybody's lying candidates.
And she's
Kari
also
Lake?
and she's also a potential.
Why are we
she's
listening
also a
to this
potential
again?
Trump vice presidential candidate.
I mean,
So
it's
Kari-
hard
the
enough
reason
to listen
Kari
to
Lake is
Marjorie
important is-
Taylor Greene, because she is a bloody moron. I mean, the thing is,
Kari
I
Lake's in
think
that
if she
same
took an
mold.
IQ test, she wouldn't hit 100. But the thing is, Marjorie Taylor Greene unfortunately got elected from the dumbest part of the world, which is northwestern Georgia. Okay, now Kari Lake, is she elected official, or
She is
there
elected.
any
Kari Lake
reason-
ran. She ran. She was what?
That's
She
for
ran
governor of
right now.
Arizona.
Yeah,
Right.
she also
She was
a
governor
news
of
reporter at
Arizona?
one point.
No, she ran and
Oh, she ran. She lost then.
and
She's a
narrowly
loser.
lost, and then spent the next, still even now is saying that she won 3 years later.
And she's also trying to be a potential vice president for Trump.
Oh, she's a loser lunatic. Is that
Well,
what
but
you're telling
she's
me?
also very
Then why are we
pretty.
listening to her?
Does
Does
so
she have mental
so-
illness? Is she homeless also? She sounds
No, but
mentally ill.
she is a lunatic. She's a former TV news anchor who
Has she been hospitalized for her condition yet?
no, she's
obviously got mental problems. I mean, she's a
I
she's
mean,
a
it's a
lunatic.
silly statement for sure.
Silly
say that
statement.
I-
It's beyond the pale. And why would we pick it up and repeat it? The thing is, I think I should spend my time with this homeless people. They're smarter than this Kari Lake person. Never heard of her. Don't want to hear of her. I think she should if she likes somebody, maybe she'd marry Marjorie Taylor Greene. That would be a great wedding. Don't you think? And see, and then they can go down their righteous right wing, whatever stupid thing that they say.
she knows how to get publicity. She's a
Well,
former,
obviously.
she's a
But
former
hold on a
news
second, but
anchor.
speaking of that, because I've been watching the North
How do
Carolina.
you spell her name? Is it K?
It's Lake
K-A-R-I.
K-A-R-I. and Lake
I don't want to defame her because I don't like defaming people that are mentally ill.
But Nick, I got a question for everybody, including Christina and Isaiah and everybody, and maybe Sasha wants to jump in there as well. I've been watching some of these political ads here in North Carolina, like the one between Brad and Kerry Daughtry. Speaking of the folks with interesting names and everything,
that's
a
horrible.
lot of times they are spending time trying to distance themselves from their positions with Biden. Like I think one of the ads accuses one of the candidates of having been Biden's lawyer, and also the other one accuses them of having been a Biden supporter. But they also seem to be spending a lot of time trying to align themselves with former President Trump. So how much is
They kiss
Nope.
Trump's behind here. You guys have no clue. You guys in LA, in Canada, they go Donald Trump, right? Am I missing something? Just tell me you live in Raleigh. Donald Trump. on me. I mean, they're horrible. And I'm watching their ads. I'm going, why would anybody vote for either one of them? I think it's Brad Knott and Carrie Daugherty. This is the biggest bring me your behind in North Carolina I've ever seen. And they just love Donald Trump. Oh, Donald, save me.
It's because right now the Republican Party does not have a legitimate platform. The only platform
they don't have a platform, not a legitimate one. They don't even have a platform.
True.
All they do is
the thing they're running on.
Here's their platform to tell you: are you going to kiss Donald Trump's butt, or you're not going to kiss his butt? That's it. That's the platform.
I mean,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
That is their platform right now.
Christina, you're lucky you don't live here, okay? Because otherwise, it'd be Donald.
Hey, by the way, Nick Lee wants to know what because you're on fire today. He wants to know what you had for breakfast, and he also said when I brought.
Oh no, Lee, it's real simple. See, I have caffeine in here, baby. It's called, it's like an amphetamine, so it wakes me up in the morning.
That's the reason I get on this morning. And he was also saying, forget the one elephant, because I did bring up the elephant that was loose in Butte, Montana.
Yeah, the elephant in Butte, Montana.
His son in India talks about cows everywhere, and that is very true, because cows are a sacred animal there in India, so they are very much all over the place. And I imagine maybe even in some countries, elephants. But in fact, I know some of the African countries, elephants are all over the place. So yeah, it's just a kind of unusual thing for the U.S., but definitely other parts of the world, it is not as unusual and everything.
Yeah, elephants are really smart. You don't want to be mean to them. They're also, if you're mean to them, they can really level you. But they're really smart animals. They're really great animals. I'm glad they took care of the elephant in Butte, Montana. I can't say that about all the people in Butte, Montana, but I can certainly say it about the elephant. The elephant's pretty good.
Speaking of folks that are definitely, that I mentioned in the news earlier, and I said I was going to get to this, and since we've only got a few more minutes to go, were you in Florida at the time that Bob Graham was the governor? And if so, what was your impression of Bob Graham?
He was actually the governor of Florida, and I believe he was a senator from Florida. He's actually pretty level-headed. By the way, there are a lot of level-headed good people out there. The problem is none of them run for office. Okay, that's the real problem. In other words, they don't aspire for higher office, and they don't get elected because they're not crazy enough to run. So unfortunately, you have the lunatics running the asylum, which is called the United States of America. I'll see you in Barcelona, baby, or Valencia, depending on which city we end up in. And I'll watch from afar. And when you guys get your act together, which will probably be about 4 years from now, I'll come back. So in the meantime, it'll be Looney Land with the Donald. Looney Land with the Donald. Okay.
So I want to just mention, like, when people decide to side with Donald, even though he's like the most compromised major candidate in our life
history.
Yeah,
history.
It's a lot of it's based on polls saying, well, he's going to win, but polls every election cycle, they get crappier because it gets harder to get sane people to respond to a political poll. So I would argue that the people siding with Donald, unless they're in a super red state, are making a bad bet based on bad information.
Hey, listen, let me tell you, the Donald was really great on The Apprentice. The Donald was really great on Celebrity Apprentice. President of the United States, as John McEnroe said, you cannot be serious. But unfortunately,
you saw Sununu did an
Put him
interview.
back on The Apprentice where he belongs.
Sununu just did an interview because he was backing Nikki Haley big time, and he went on everywhere talking about how bad Donald Trump was. And same thing. Chris Christie's not he hadn't come out and done anything, but Sununu went out and talked about how bad Donald Trump was and everything else. And then was just asked recently, because Sununu just said that he's going to back Donald Trump. And they asked him, okay, what about everything that you just said, or that you said about him? He said, well, he's running a Republican platform, which truthfully he's not. Oh, well, it's because there are 59 million people who are, but that's not being a leader. If you're going to be a leader in a situation, you've got to be able to honestly say, I'm not going to back him not because of the polls are shifting, but that's what right now the Republican Party is doing. And that's why they're backing him, is because the polls, a bunch of them, because he controls the base of that party. And if they want to actually be in that party, they're going to do whatever Donald Trump says and justify whatever he does, no matter how horrible it is, because he is a cult leader he's a martyr. He's reached that martyr status to a lot of those people in that base. And because of that, yeah, the Republican Party is going to back him. There's no platform for the Republican Party besides Donald Trump, and that's.
But you can't win with that base because that base is only 40% of voters.
Yeah, but
they can win if
a lot of other
voters
people sit at home, then
Democrats
you
stay
can win
away.
with that base.
So he can win the election. Don't fool yourself. I mean, and we have plenty of time. Right now, they're running neck and neck. But the thing is,
he has a
you
chance.
have
According
between now and
to
November,
polls
you don't
that
know
are
what's gonna
themselves suspect. But the LA Times today ran an article saying that 15% of voters are super turned off by both candidates.
No,
Right. That's what I've been saying.
They're saying a lot of people may leave the campaign and not even vote at all, including a lot of folks that are in the age range of Isaiah and Christina and all of that. I did have a quick question because we only got a few more minutes to go and everything, but how can you be then this comes back to one of the other trials, because I'm thinking this cannot be a friendly household and all along these lines, because we've got the case with Senator Menendez and everything, and apparently he's still married to his wife, but he's going to blame his wife for this whole thing of what went on with the federal corruption trial. So I'm thinking this is not going to be a long-term situation. I mean, they've been married for a long time, but I'm thinking that's a divorce court if you could be blaming your wife for what happened in this charge, because I'm thinking that that's not a good way to end a relationship. Or maybe it is a good way to end a relationship.
We're talking about Menendez.
Yes.
Yeah, he's.
I mean, he's just Google him and just take a look at him in action. Like, he and his wife are just both like very corrupt idiots.
I just love the fact that he came up with some ridiculous excuse. How do you have these gold bars? Well, come on, dog. You know you're crooked.
What are all these gold bars doing in your house? You got 200 gold bars in your house. How'd that happen?
Well, apparently he said his wife got them.
How'd that prostitute get $130,000 of funds from your attorney? Well, I don't know how that happened. Happened. Oh, wait, that's another case. Sorry. He should just admit it. Okay, he was paying her off. Come on, that was it. It was payday time, so he was making a payment. Now there's a stretch that's a campaign contribution. That's not a campaign contribution. That's for professional services rendered. All the lawyers will like that one.
Well, speaking of campaigns and everything, there is a swing state that apparently has got a benefit of going Democrats, because apparently the Michigan special election flipped the control of the lower house toward the Democrats. So the Democrats have retaken control of the Michigan State House after the special election win. So we do know that that is a swing state, and maybe that will impact what goes on in that swing state, because they retake the House majority after Herzberg and Jean outpaced their opponents. So it looks like that swing state has now gone back to the Democratic side of the tally. And we know that sometimes there can be super states with super control, like what's happening in North Carolina. I think the Republicans have a super control and all along those lines. So we'll see what happens in Michigan, since that's one of those swing states and everything.
But so we've had very strange politics since 2010, where Republicans said, hey, we shouldn't try to win. We should focus more on winning over state legislators, legislatures controlling state governments. It was called Red Map. And it started in 2010, and it propped up like crappy Republican politicians because they learned how to win even when people don't like them. So we're at the end of a period of Republican candidates who are super spoiled because they're propped up by Fox News and by learning how to be by election trickery. And Republicans for decades now haven't been forced to learn how to come up with policies that people like because they've won through trickery. And now we've got this super crappy Republican Party that, after every election where they don't win, people, pundits on Fox News say, well, now they're going to learn a lesson. Now they're going to change their policies. And they haven't. They're probably going to get spanked again this time around. Will they learn a lesson?
That'll be the interesting thing to say. I know we're going to get off because we've gone a little bit over and everything. But Christina, any final thoughts that you wanted to bring up really quickly or anything? Because we didn't have that much. You brought a couple of things that you brought up, but everything in general, but anything that you just wanted to address before we get on out of here. And then I'm going to ask Sasha what he's got coming up on the investment show in about 2 hours.
Well, the Carolina Journal actually just put an article out that I was reading while you guys were talking about Kelly Daughtry. And he was saying that she's getting a lot of backlash right now because I guess she decided to fund her own campaign, but she's also made massive donations to the Democratic Party. So I don't know if you guys know about that, but that just came out this morning.
And that was part of one of the ads, because one of the ads brings out the fact that she was backing the Democratic Party. And that's, I know what Brad's ad had brought up was this notion that she is not a true Republican, but she is actually a Democrat in wolf's clothing or something along those lines is what the ad tries to claim.
So she donated to Sherry Beasley, the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate.
Yep, and that's one of the things that the ad brings up from Brad, the donation to Sherry Beasley and also a donation to one of the other candidates as well. I forgot which the other candidate was. Do you remember, Jatofi?
I can't remember. It's the purity test that is going through the Republican Party right now.
Yeah, how much of a supporter of Mr. Trump you are and all along those lines. Sasha, what do we got coming up at 1 o'clock on the investment? And then we'll get ready to get on out of here. We'll have some more conversation tomorrow. I think we may have a guest, not in tomorrow as well, but I'll send y'all the email and I'll tell you who that guest is once I confirm that they are going to be here. But just what you got coming up on the investment show.
Thank you. We'll discuss the market and how it reacts to political news, including overseas developments and so on. We'll discuss the wonderful investment opportunities such as DJT stock of Donald Trump and how much money people are already losing then. And most of the small investors will lose everything, every penny what they invested. And there are already lawsuits starting from investors against board of directors that they were all duped and they were lied to. And it will be very interesting development. And then everybody will end up suing Trump, and Trump will sue everybody else and the board of directors and his partners and so on. It will be a very, very interesting circus. It just starts to really boiling down. But we'll see it. In next 2 weeks will be very interesting.
Sounds like it, and we're definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, we'll be back with more great conversation on Thursday and Friday. But right now, we're going to get on out of here. And we've got, like you said, Modern Investment at 1. And we've got other shows coming up during the day, including Follow the Brand at 7, which is a branding show that Grant McGaw does. But right now, we're going to get on out of here and just keep your radios and TVs locked into the different ways of getting things done here on the network, because some of these shows are also re-aired audio wise as well. So definitely look forward to hearing from folks, and definitely get in touch with us at podtv.tv. But we're going to get out of here, but I'll see Sasha at 1 o'clock at Modern Investment.
See you. Bye-bye.